Alright, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to episode 3 of TAi Just Think About It with your host Stefan Dior. Well, in today's episode, I wish to talk about the law of principles. The law of principles of life, also known as the 7 hermetic principles in antiquity. Well, first of all, let's start. Let's go jump right in this. Principles must come first. Principles, I will say, are the base truths of all truths. I'm going to use the example of the numbering system that we're so accustomed to. The base 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Every number to infinity after that always reduces back to those base numbers. Next, in order to understand the next steps that I will be getting into, let's break down the word principle down to its Latin roots. Well, to start off, the first part, princip or princip means first or chief, or also the Latin word principia, which means foundation, or principium, which means source, okay? Well, on the show, it's the show Avatar, the cartoon, not the movie. It's about a boy who must master all 4 elements in order to defeat the bad guy, like in every good story, or in every story. Well, it's this one episode where he must meet this monk, who helps him open up his chakras from his root to his crown. But in order to defeat the evil or the bad guy, the evil that's in the world. And Aang has no problem opening all of the chakras until he gets to the Crown Chakra. When he reaches this, the monk tells him that once he opens it, he's able to go in and out of the Avatar state, or the Superman or godlike state at will. And when in this state, he will have complete control and awareness of all of his thoughts and actions. But the only way to achieve this will be to unlock this chakra by releasing all earthly possessions. He tells him to meditate on what attaches him to this earth and let go. But he could not see how letting go of his girlfriend and the family that he came to create will help him in life in general. How can stopping loving people help bring in more love? But I will explain this later. In the Bible, Colossians chapter 3, verse 2, it says, "Set your minds on things that are above and not things that are on earth." Okay? I say all of this because this lower reality we are in is a reflection and is being created by the higher realities, okay? So to speak. So in the higher is where all of the principles of life lie. So no matter what circumstance, these principles of true law must come first. It must come before the money attachments, before the attachments to things made by man, and above all, the familiar connection. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to stop loving those and stop caring about your family members and that, but everything we do, everything we interact with must work through principle. It must interact through principles, okay? Or else all will fall. I like to use the example of the house built on sand. Like usually you build the foundation, put all the work the foundation in, with the cement and rocks, and then you build a house on top. But if you build a house on the beach or on the sand with no foundation, whenever a storm comes, whenever any catastrophe, little or big, small, large comes, your house is just gone. It's going to be brought back to the ocean. It's going to be destroyed, okay? So we must have strong foundations in everything. And with life, our foundation is principle, okay? It's these natural law principles that I will explain. Now, these principles of life, of creation that I will speak of, are attributed to a man known in antiquity as Hermes Trismegistus. He lived in Egypt, or Kemet as it was called back before it was renamed Egypt by the Greeks, okay? Now, the quote, according to the Kabbalion, this is who he is. I will read. "The scribes of the gods who dwelled in old Egypt in the days when the present race of men was in its infancy, contemporary of Abraham, and if legends be true, an instructor of that venerable sage. All fundamental and basic teachings embedded in the esoteric teachings of every race may be traced back to Hermes. Even the most ancient teachings of India undoubtedly have their roots in the original Hermetic teachings. Now, these natural principles, these natural law principles, as Mark Pascal puts it, that are in operation cannot be changed. Therefore, they are law, okay? I will in this segment touch on one of the 7 Hermetic principles, or life-giving principles, natural law principles, God's law, whatever it may be. The first principle is the principle of mentalism, which generally is the universe is mental, held in mind of the all, okay? Which entitles that everything we do starts as a thought, all actions included. Example, in the morning you hear your alarm, and before you hit the button, you think of yourself either hitting the button, snooze button, and staying asleep an extra 5 minutes, or you see yourself hitting the other button and getting up and doing what you have to do. Those future actions are all based off of how you're thinking at that moment and what you envision, okay? That goes the same for walking, art, and running. Might as well throw that in there. You envision your legs movement, the brush strokes, and in some cases people can see the whole entire picture and paint exactly what they see. That's pretty cool to me. Alright? I like this picture or example also. We all exist in the mind of God, or the mind of the all. What else? We are all the all's mental creation. Just as Othello, Romeo, and Juliet were all Shakespeare's mental creation. They were all real characters in Shakespeare's mind. They ate, slept, dreamt, and caused actions that affect the world that Shakespeare created mentally for them. Therefore, Othello, Romeo and Juliet, and others are all Shakespeare, as Shakespeare are also them, or also in them. This is where the phrase all in all originates from. Othello has Shakespeare's spirit, which animates and gives him life. Just TAi about that for a second, okay? Just TAi. Say no created thing can be God. They can only reach the state where they have the mind of God, okay? The right God-like modes of thinking, and can then operate in this reality more efficiently, and things that they want to happen, things that they think about, that they wish to happen, they will want them to happen, they will will them happen, therefore they will make them happen through their actions, okay? And it all starts with a thought. What's true for good is also true for the opposite side of the coin, the flip side of the coin. If your thoughts are based on sadness, selfishness, or self-loathing, any of the kind, your reality will follow based off of these thoughts, as said in episode 1 of TAi, of just TAi, okay? Watch not what you think, but how you think. Don't be afraid to take in information. Just be skeptical and be real critical on how you analyze those in your thoughts, okay? Study carefully what you believe. Many people create their own problems and are not aware that their own thoughts, that they are the cause of their own problems, okay? We need to TAi how we are really thinking. Let me say that again. We need to TAi how we are really thinking, in order to make sure we are acting off of our own thoughts and not the minds of others, such as government, religion, and the dark occultists that have their hand in everything in society today, believe it or not. Okay? I'm gonna end this first segment of Law Principles of Life with a quote from the great Steve Jobs. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinion drown out your inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. Steve Jobs. And one more from Albert Einstein, where he said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking used to create them. Alright, stay tuned for the next episode, where I will touch on the second law principle of life, which is the law of correspondence. That which is above is like that which is below. We all tie, but do we really tie?
As we examine the fabric of the cosmos ever more closely, we may well find far more surprises than anyone ever imagined. Take me, for example. I seem real enough, don't I? Well, yes. But surprising new clues are emerging that everything, you and I, and even space itself, may actually be a kind of hologram. That is, everything we see and experience, everything we call our familiar three-dimensional reality, may be a projection of information that's stored on a thin, distant, two-dimensional surface. Sort of the way the information for this hologram is stored on this thin piece of plastic. Now, holograms are something we're all familiar with, from the security symbol you find on most credit cards. But the universe is a hologram? That's one of the most drastic revisions to our picture of space and reality ever proposed. And the evidence for it comes from some of the strangest realms of space, black holes.
This is a real disconnect, and it's very hard to get your head around. Modern ideas coming from black holes tell us that reality is two-dimensional, that the three-dimensional world, the full-bodied three-dimensional world, is a kind of image of a hologram on the boundary of the region of space.
This is a very strange thing. When I was a younger physicist, I would have thought any physicist who said that was absolutely crazy.
Here's a way to think about this. Imagine I took my wallet and threw it into a black hole. What would happen? We used to think that since nothing, not even light, can escape the immense gravity of a black hole, my wallet would be lost forever. But it now seems that may not be the whole story. Recently, scientists exploring the math describing black holes made a curious discovery. Even as my wallet disappears into the black hole, a copy of all the information it contains seems to get smeared out and stored on the surface of the black hole, in much the same way that information is stored in a computer. So, in the end, my wallet exists in two places. There's a three-dimensional version that's lost forever inside the black hole, and a two-dimensional version that remains on the surface as information.
The information content of all the stuff that fell into that black hole can be expressed entirely in terms of just the outside of the black hole. The idea then is that you can capture what's going on inside the black hole by referring only to the outside.
And in theory, I could use the information on the outside of the black hole to reconstruct my wallet. And here's the truly mind-blowing part. Space within a black hole plays by the same rules as space outside a black hole or anywhere else. So if an object inside a black hole can be described by information on the black hole surface, then it might be that everything in the universe, from galaxies and stars to you and me, even space itself, is just a projection of information stored on some distant two-dimensional surface that surrounds us. In other words, what we experience as reality may be something like a hologram.
Is the three-dimensional world an illusion in the same sense that a hologram is an illusion? Perhaps. I'm inclined to think yes, that the three-dimensional world is a kind of illusion, and that the ultimate precise reality is the two-dimensional reality at the surface of the universe.
This idea is so new that physicists are still struggling to understand it. But if it's right, just as Newton and Einstein completely changed our picture of space, we may be on the verge of an even more dramatic revolution. For something that's such a vital part of our everyday lives, space remains kind of like a familiar stranger. It's all around us, but we're still far from having unmasked its true identity. That may take 100 years, it may take 1,000 years, or it may happen tomorrow. But when we solve that mystery, we'll take a giant step toward fully understanding the fabric of the cosmos.